So Fanny Mendelssohn Henson was born in the early 1800s, and she had a younger brother, Felix, that is better known than Fanny. But Fanny was also taught piano by her mother, as was Felix, and became a child prodigy, not only as a pianist, but also as a composer. Unfortunately, she was told, or maybe fortunately, she was told by her father that she could not do public performances and to stop composing. He wanted her to get married, which she did. But she continued to compose, and Felix started to use the music that Fanny composed and published it under his name. So much of the music when she wrote earlier is contributed to her, but later music may not have been. She and Felix were very close, and they died within 6 months of each other. So this is by Fanny Mendelssohn Henson, and it's called Andante con Expression.
Thank you, Bruce. Good morning. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Treasure Coast here in Stuart, Florida. Today is March 14th, 2021. My name is Regina Wood, and I will be your worship associate today. We're happy to have our own Rev Bob MacDonald in the pulpit today. And we want to give a big thanks to those who help with our service, Bruce Ruby, our music director, and our Zoom host, Corina Pelloni. And we're happy to welcome Corina's mom, who's here today. And we just want her to know how much we love and appreciate all that Corina does for this congregation. She's a joy to have. We will now mute everyone to avoid any noise in the background. So please remain muted during the service. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, races, ages, and backgrounds. We want to thank you for being with us today. We are holding Zoom services every Sunday at 11 a.m. To be put on our email list or to find out more information about us, please go to our website at tcuuc.org. If you sign up for our email, you'll get a Friday online newsletter, which will give you all announcements about what's going on with the congregation. And we have a midweek follow-up from the sermon from the Sunday before. Now Bob will light the chalice in the sanctuary. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life. Now we will have our opening words. Unitarian Universalists do not have a dogma or doctrine, but we do affirm and promote 7 principles which we hold as strong values and moral guides. The following words are on our 7th principle, and they're from Reverend Forrest Gilmore. Our 7th principle is respect for the interdependent web of all existence. It is a glorious statement, yet we make a profound mistake when we limit it merely to an environmental idea. It is so much more. It is our response to the great dangers of both individualism and oppression. It is our solution to the seeming conflict between the individual and the group. Our 7th principle may be the Unitarian Universalist way of coming to fully embrace something greater than ourselves. The interdependent web, whether expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of all existence, the community forming power, the process of life, the creative force, even God, can help us develop that social understanding of ourselves that we in our culture so desperately need. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. And now our music director will play hymn 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though the pain I may my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did wrong, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always in the lucid spark. If they ask what I did wrong, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment kissed me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes
Thank you, Bruce. That was a beautiful song. Let us now recite our affirmation, speaking the first verse and singing the second. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
I twisted Corina's arm to let me do the story for all ages, share it with me. So this is kind of my audition. You know, this year has been a really serious year. We just celebrated an anniversary, and anniversaries are often happy celebrations. Not the one this past week. It's been life or death all year. Pretty serious. So for the story this morning, I decided to pick up Shel Silverstein. Shel Silverstein, everything on it. I decided we needed a dose of silly. Remember silly? Some of you might remember Monty Python and the Ministry of Silly Walks. If you haven't seen that, not now, but later, YouTube in the search, Ministry of Silly Walks. We need some silly. So I got Shel to read a couple of his poems. Everything on it. I asked for a hot dog with everything on it. That was my big mistake, because it came with a parrot, a bee in a bonnet, a wristwatch, a wrench, and a rake. It came with a goldfish, a flag and a fiddle, a frog, and a front porch swing, and a mouse in a mask. That's the last time I asked for a hot dog with everything. I don't know if you can see it, but here's the hot dog with everything. Now, a little more silliness. This is called Happy New. Joe yelled, Happy New Year. The cow yelled, Happy Moo Year. The ghost yelled, Happy Boo Year. The doctor yelled, Happy Flu Year. The penguin sneezed, Happy Achoo Year. The skunk yelled, Happy Pu Year. The owl hooted, Happy To-Woo Year. The cowboy yelled, Happy Yahoo Year. The train man yelled, Happy Choo-Choo Year. The clock man yelled, Happy Cuckoo Year. The barefoot man yelled, Happy Shoe Year. The hungry man said, Happy Chew Year. There were many more Happy Ooh Years than you ever heard. At our New Year's party last June 23rd. One more. This is called Fourth Place. I came in fourth in the beauty contest. Please let me cry a minute. I came in fourth in the beauty contest. I was so sure I'd win it. They can keep their ribbon that says fourth place, and I don't care where they pin it. I came in fourth in a beauty contest, and there were just 3 of us in it. I hope you remember Silly. I hope you have a little Silly in your life. Work on it if you don't. Shel Silverstein. Thank you, Corina.
Thank you, Bob. We're now going into special time during the service, and that is our joys and sorrows, and that was certainly a joy from Bob. Let us now share our joys and sorrows. I will move a stone in our symbolic river to mark each joy and sorrow. Please keep your joys and sorrows brief. Raise your hand to share, and we will unmute you to speak. For those whose joys and sorrows were too private to share, I want you to know that our hearts are with you, and we'll put this in the river for you in your intention. And now we'll have our pastoral, a reading.
This spoke to me. It's from the back of the hymnal again, a litany of atonement by Robert Eller Isaacs. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For losing sight of our unity, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. Robert Eller Isaacs. Moments of silence.
Come to me, come to me.
As you may know, we are currently having our yearly pledge drive, and Ann Nazoa, a longtime UUer and a beloved member of this congregation, will now talk about what UU has meant to her. Ann, you want to unmute?
Okay. And since Bob has introduced the idea that silly is appropriate today, I will tell you that before I came here, I was at an antique show, but I had to leave because they started bidding on me. So here I am, and I wanted to tell you how I decide on my pledge. Every few years, I re-examine the idea. What I do is take my income, not my discretionary income, but the whole caboodle, and take off 10% at the top and make that my pledge. This year, and it's come to $3,000 for the last few years. Donald Trump was not interested at all in raising my income, and so far we'll see what will happen. Now, though, I feel in my experience in the church that we are facing a particular, really, group of crises. It's not just one. The crises have to do in general with money, although, excuse me, not only with money. So I added onto my pledge $2,000, and I've made a pledge of $5,000. Since I've already paid it, nobody has to worry about whether I can live up to it. I live or I don't live, but the pledge is paid. Anyway, thank you for listening to me. I don't suggest that my way is correct and you have to use it, but you all know that we are in dire need this year, and I hope pledges will be increased. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ann. And now we know why she's so beloved in our congregation. She's very generous and funny lady, and we just love her to death. If you haven't already sent your pledge in, we encourage you to do that. We also have the Sunday service offering, which is a standard church practice to invite the congregation, members, and friends to reflect on their love and support of the congregation and the possibility of growing in their giving. We need all of us to grow in our giving, as Ann has shown. We've been through a rough year. This has been a rough year. But with the support of the congregation in so many ways, not just financially, but everything from cleaning the church to handling the finances. I mean, people have just been wonderful in giving their time. And we've been able to pull through and keep going. But we do have operating bills and greatly reduced income. So any contributions, extra contributions that you can make are greatly appreciated. You will find information on how to make a contribution online or where to send a check on our virtual bulletin. And now Bruce will play the offertory.
We are grateful for the gifts we receive. We gladly give back in hopes that this church will grow in love and in spirit. Before I announced the next musical video, I had an inspiration listening to Mendelssohn and Bruce. And when I get an inspiration, you get it. I was thinking, we've had to do without the lyric this year. We've had to do without the ACO. Bruce tells me he loves to practice and doesn't consider it work. So I was thinking, think on this, Bruce. We could have an hour set aside where we could come in and listen quietly as Bruce practices from Mendelssohn to Pennies from Heaven. Whatever Bruce practices, it'll beat what I'm not getting from the lyric this year. Okay, so I thought that was inspiring. I'll consult with Bruce when it's less embarrassing to do so. And now I found this video that is a song we all know, and I think it's like a UU theme song. It expresses our faith, our religion, our spirituality, as well as any that I know, piece of music, and it's from the Gay Men's Chorus in Sacramento. I meant to add to that little inspiration I had just before that video that we'll get a taste of listening to Bruce on Wednesday from 6 to 7, our St. Patrick's Day happy hour together. You don't have to dress in green or drink green, but it should be enjoyable. 6 to 7, you got to let me know you want the link, and I'll be sure to send it to you. Who are you calling a charity? Look, I know it should be whom, but I'm trying to sound tough, faux tough, not grammatical. A couple of you ask for this. How many charities do you have to support? Or maybe just how many good causes should a good UU help fund? A question you're not asking, but I have to chime in with, is the church a charity? Is this congregation, TCUUC, one of your charities? I get a bit lit up about that. In my early idealistic Reverend Boy Wonder from Yale Divinity days, or so I unhumbly thought, I was full-time and the secretary was part-time and often not there. So I was told to open mail if it looked like offerings and put them in the night drop bag. We weren't thriving and checks couldn't sit around. And I had to be sure they were made out to the church. More than once, I noticed the good folks had marked in the memo, charity. What? Really? Charity was often attached to another word in my experience, cases, as in charity cases. So here I was, starting a career in what I thought would be the other love of my life, only to discover that a number of my flock had a different take on our joint venture. The word, of course, comes from Latin, caritas. The Random House Dictionary starts the definition of charity with generosity to the poor, then alms or aid, then benevolent feeling, leniency, and finally, Christian love. Why Christian love and not Jewish or Buddhist or humanist or atheist? I mean, I count myself one, or I'm trying to be one, but I can't say Christians just shine at it. Muslims require alms. I've been taught that by a number of Muslims. So I guess Christian love makes the list because of St. Paul's famous trio, Now abideth these three, faith, hope, and charity. Obviously, I had a bias about whether church donation was on a list of whatever tugs at your heartstrings. But to answer how many causes, charities out there for you, you have to check out your heart and what gets you there. Good heartburn. Also, because your last name isn't Gates or Buffett, you have to answer for yourself, do I want to give a little to a lot of legitimate needs, or do I want to give more than a little to a few? Only you can answer that. We, and no doubt you, get a ton of email and regular mail and phone call solicitations. Thank the deity, the heavens, for caller ID. PBA types, at least they used to self-identify as police support, used to call and ask for Lori. Finally, I lied and told them she was no more. That wasn't true, but the no more was. I can't stand those endless animal commercials of animals begging, sickly looking, victims of animal abuse, shivering. For me, mute or flip time. I have watched or ended the suffering of too many of our own feline babies. We had to euthanize one of our bonded pair from the Asheville Humane Society 2 weeks ago. We cry our way to the car and agree no more there too, but that changes for cat lovers. Is the church, this congregation, on your list of to be pitied? I hope not. I hope we are a nurturing community. And I hope in the very foreseeable future, we will be able to ask each other that healing Meghan Markle question. Are you okay? Ask each other face to face with no screen or wires, maybe masks, between us, I hope. But seriously, is the congregation like a charity we don't want to see go under? So maybe a little help? For me, it's more like the checks we've sent to our adult children because they needed it. We didn't write charity in the memo. They are part of our loving and part of the reason why we are alive, and surely a way we hope to live on. So they aren't a charity, but I wouldn't tell them more than once we sent the check with that famous Jewish prayer. How long, O Lord? I discovered, rather belatedly, that the meaning of life is to find the meaning of your life, of my life, and practice it as fully as able. And it's never too late to go for that. When it's over, you can say you found the meaning of your life and enjoyed it. And that's the most any of us can hope for. I went to college and seminary with becoming a minister, the plan. Then I studied a year of intellectual history, the history of ideas, basically the Enlightenment at Temple University in Philadelphia, and then some philosophy in Drew U in New Jersey. Then one day I found one of those little books at the counter of the Hallmark store titled The Meaning of Life, $5 and a 10-minute read, and you have it. The meaning of life is to find what you love to do and do it. I'm going to segue to people I was privileged to know who loved this congregation. And obviously, it seemed to me, loving this congregation, you here in Stuart, Florida, dare we say red, conservative, evangelical Christian, Stuart, Florida. Parenthetically, did you read about that woman theologian leader, Beth Moore of the Southern Baptists, who quit this week with a scathing op-ed to the effect that Christian nationalism is a snake in the garden? One of her supporters put it eloquently: while there are 1,000 ways we can robustly disagree as people of faith, there are and should be deal breakers. The defense of white supremacy, patriarchal abuse, moral bankruptcy, the crushing of human souls for proximity to power. The crushing of human souls for proximity to power. Or, as our Bruce Olson posted on Facebook last November, rather than putting Christ back in Christmas, I'd settle for putting Christ back in Christians. So yes, progressive UU in Stewart, this was surely part of the meaning they found in life and wanted here. Now, Bill mentioned in a mailing recently, can you imagine Stewart, Martin, St. Lucie without TCUUC? This congregation is 30 next year, I believe, 30 next year. Some of you don't have to imagine that, Stewart, Martin, St. Lucie without TCUUC, because you were here 30 years ago when this congregation wasn't, and was birthed by generous, creative people who didn't want to imagine the area without you, not anymore. A colleague of mine in New York used to say when he went back to churches where he had been the minister, he felt the presence, the spirit of those he had known there. I want to mention the spirit of a few I will always feel here. There are many, but just a couple now. Martha Mickelson died about 10 years ago after a cancer battle. She was a lover of this place when south, and All Souls, New York City, especially the Reverend Dr. Forrest Church, when north. Yost called me one day and said she thinks this is her last day and wants to talk to you. You get dressed and combed and get there. Lead question, what do you want to talk about? She wanted to talk about the future of this congregation, its endowment, and what she would leave it. A lot of caritas. Likewise, David Craig. Before this new sanctuary was ever mentioned, David was in bad shape at Martin Memorial. I went thinking mortality. He was thinking growing UU in Stewart. One thing he told me was, Bob, too many meetings will tire you out. Don't let that happen. Curiously, do you remember some of the things with a slight self-serving edge to them? Anyway, I didn't want to tire him out, but he was just getting started. So he and neighbor friends were offering the package to build this sanctuary. The congregation had to vote to accept it. I went from the vote to his bedside to tell him he died that night. Those who watch David up front with those architectural drawings will always feel the love he had for a future he knew he wouldn't see here. Lastly, I want to mention a few I know some of you remember well. Enid and Vince. Enid, of Jewish root, was grabbed by you before it became UU, and she held on. It wasn't charity, but it was caritas, what she loved, intellect and heart and justice. She had seen writ large across the world, across her almost century, that old expression, man's inhumanity to man, and saw you as the seeding of a better world. What we can do might seem little, but we have to. So your charity list is, well, what you can't say no to. I hope this congregation for you is on a list in a league of its own, a place of shared wellness and well wishes, and a song of beloved community and justice we want here for us now and for those who come after us. The closing hymn is 209. Oh, come, you longing, thirsting souls.
Come, you longing, thirsty souls, drink freely from the spring. And come, you weary, famished folk, and end your hunger reign. Why stand you so empty? Why not be satisfied?
The chalice will be extinguished after these words. What a gift, what a package this life is. We get to move beyond looking after number one and have the privilege and maybe the gnawing, the sleep-disturbing matter of asking and answering, whom else?
The postlude is composed by Clara Schumann. She was a contemporary of Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel, and they knew each other. Clara was the wife of better-known Robert Schumann. Clara grew up in a very wealthy family and was taught piano by her father, and became, at a very early age, went on tour throughout Europe as a concert pianist. She married Robert, who was a composer, and they had 8 children together. But she still continued to be a concert pianist, and she herself was a composer. Unfortunately, Robert died fairly young, and Clara was the now breadwinner for her 8 children and grandchildren. She composed quite a bit for the piano, for orchestras, for art songs, so she has made a contribution the same as Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel. This is a scherzo in G major by Clara Schumann.